Now, we've talked quite a bit about your display and the forms and all of that sort of thing. That's all good, and those things that we've talked about can only do so much for you, and hopefully what they'll result in is getting people to the stand. So all the rest of it is up to the people that are on the stand. They need to have energy and enthusiasm. They need to be professional, and they need to actually care about the people. So make sure you come across well from the start. It's the only chance that you've got to get somebody to want to stop. You've probably got less than 3 seconds as somebody visits your stand to let them know who you are, what you do, and why they need you. And that's not only going to be by what's on the wall and what's on your display, it's also going to be by the way that you are. They then are going to make a decision about whether to stop. So it's not all about what you say. In fact, it's not very much about what you say at all. It's mostly about how you say it. So you've possibly heard something along these lines before about communication, but it's worth looking at again, and in your pre-show training to also go over this as well. So body language is the most important one. And when you go on your espionage trip around some other trade show just to see how you behave and what you like, notice how people's body language is. You know, look at their posture, their gestures, whether they make eye contact, whether they're smiling. It might sound like a lot of things to think about, but people are checking you out long before they get anywhere near you. And once they are talking to you, just take their lead. You know, don't be too loud and extroverted if you're talking to a very shy person, and don't be too quiet if you're talking to a very loud and extroverted person. Don't ignore anybody. Never stand with your arms folded. Always hold something in your hands so that it stops you folding your hands, and I always had my clipboards there. And make sure you don't invade anyone's personal space. So there's actually quite a lot to think about. Given that that's the most important part of the whole thing, it is a lot to think about. A lot to observe as well, but quite interesting. Now what you say doesn't mean very much at all, because they're in a busy place, they're thinking about 100 things, they've had lots of people trying to do just what you're doing with them, and they're actually not really listening. So they're not going to remember the words that you use, but they are going to remember how they felt while they were talking to you. So remember that your aim is to help people, not just to sell to people. And if you can keep that in your attitude, then that's what will come across. You do have to have an outline or a script of what people need to cover with the people they're talking to, just so that everyone sort of keeps it brief and knows what to stick to. And you do need to practice that, but remember it's really a lot more about the attitude. And that comes down to how you say it as well, which actually I guess comes into body language. I think we could just about say body language is 90% actually, because how you say it is just your attitude coming across as well. So and this means that you need to monitor the person you're talking to, as I mentioned just before. Monitor who you're talking to and try and match them slightly. You know, if you come across as very quiet and shy and you're speaking to someone very confident, they'll find that a bit irritating. And the other way around, a shy, quiet person will be terrified if you start using wild gestures and be loud. But there are people that would love that. So to me, that's actually part of the fun, is looking at how people are and trying to make sure that I'm coming across in a way that they might appreciate. Okay, so doing a show does take energy, and it can be difficult after a number of hours on the stand of standing on your feet to remain smiling and focused. So it's very important that you look after yourself, and if you're in charge of the stand, to make sure everyone else is looking after themselves as well. So you really need to have a break every 2 hours at least. Even that's quite a long time, but time goes quickly if it's a busy show. So make sure you have a break. When you're on a break, get away from the stand And if you can, go outside and have some fresh air. Don't spend all of your breaks going around looking at everybody else's stands. You know, you need to quieten your brain a little bit and rejuvenate yourself slightly. Make sure the night before that you have a good meal and a good rest. Also make sure that you wear good shoes. Don't turn up in stiletto heels, because by the end of the day you'll really find it difficult to be smiling and looking happy. So wear good shoes that are going to see you through the day, and make sure you eat healthily, drink lots of water, and have some energy bars and things there as well, because in my experience what happens is you can get so busy and so caught up in it, you forget to take breaks and you don't eat, and by the end of it you start to feel dizzy and really quite unwell, and it's very difficult to give good service to anybody when you're feeling like that. So make sure everybody knows how to look after themselves. Okay, a little bit of etiquette, and we'll talk a little bit about etiquette, and then that'll be before we talk about what to do after the show, which will be the last part of today. And then we'll have a look and see if there are any questions there as well. Just a few bits and pieces which I'm completely aware that this is common sense, but I think it's really worth mentioning all of these points that I'm about to mention, and mentioning it to anyone that's going to be on the stand, because as much as these are common sense, you walk around a trade show and see how many people are breaking some of these things. So the whole idea is your stand has to be welcoming and inviting them to come and see some more. So first one, never eat or drink on the stand. I mean, if you've got some water, have a sip of water, but don't eat or drink, and that includes chewing gum. Chewing gum looks so unprofessional. You need to be looking completely focused on what you're doing. So if you want to have a snack or you want to have a cup of coffee, go somewhere else and have it. I mentioned this before actually, no private conversations with each other or any visitors to the booth, and if you are having a quick chat, I mean, it's not like you're going to stand there in complete silence. Make sure you're totally aware of what's going on, so that if somebody is coming past, that you stop and make eye contact and make it about them, not blocking them out. Walking up to you on a stand and actually engaging in conversation with you is something that's outside of most people's comfort zones. You know, they're happy to walk around, but a lot of people never actually talk to the people behind the stand. So it can be out of people's comfort zones, no matter how friendly or genuine you are. And if you're standing there having a private conversation, then those people just will not talk to you. Don't have any chairs on your stand. If you walk around your trade show when you're doing your espionage trip, I suppose we'll just call it espionage trip, then notice how it feels when somebody's sitting behind a desk on a chair, or even just sitting in a chair. It gives a completely different energy to the stand. So there should be no chairs there, and you should be standing. If you want to have a rest, if you want to sit, then go to the exhibitors rest area. I'm going to say it's very good if you can all be dressed in the same thing, but I actually think it's very important that you're all dressed in clothes that identify you with your stand, and all wear the same thing, so that people passing by know who to talk to. There's nothing worse than somebody wanting to talk to someone on the stand and looking around and not knowing who it is, because you just look like one of the people that's visiting the show. So if you don't have a uniform, it's easy enough to get black pants and a black top and wear your company badge, but you may well have some sort of a uniform you can already use, or at least or dress in the company colours or something. Don't stand right in front of your stand where nobody can see in. You want them to see the walls, so think about where you're standing, and stand around the edges a bit and make sure you smile. Just mentioned that, and I mentioned the name badges as well. So don't block the view, wear your name badges or some sort of a uniform. The other thing is, think about arriving early and staying late, because what I've found is that the most serious people talk to you right at the end of the day, and often I've had the most amazing contacts right at the very last minute while everyone else is busy packing up. So don't be in a huge rush to leave, because you could well miss out on something fantastic. People that are running out of time because they've spent so long at the other stands are going to do a last-minute scramble of the stands that they sort of made a mental note of to visit again before the show closes. And if they're racing to get to your stand, it needs to still be open. And if you're busy putting things in boxes, then they won't talk to you, or they'll feel that they're holding you back. Most exhibitors start packing up as soon as they can, but I think it's worth waiting an extra half an hour. A lot of the stall holders actually come up and talk to you at the end as well. They might have already packed up, and then they'll come looking for you too. So it's the golden hour. Okay, so before we move on to after the show, just do a quick check-in and find out if there's any questions that we haven't answered yet.
Yes, there is one question here. Do you think that team members should be paying to be on the stand?
I do actually. It may be that you choose to subsidise. If it's your own team, you might choose to subsidise. But yes, I do think that people should charge to be on the stand. There needs to be an investment in their business, and you want them to take this seriously and want to get business out of it. And in my experience, if they're not paying for it, often they don't take it with the same level of seriousness. So it's an investment in your business that you're going to get bookings and recruits and sales from if you do it right, and the people on the stand need to be ready and willing to do that. So there's different ways you can charge. What I did was divide the day up into 3 blocks and decide how many people were going to be on the stand, and then work out a charge per block. And as I say, it doesn't have to be so that you cover all of the cost of the stand, but it at least should be something that means that they come there quite determined to make the best of the opportunity. But you also want to make sure that people are going to follow up their leads afterwards, and if people have paid for it, they definitely want to get their money back out of it. So yes, I do believe people should pay.